May is for mothers, from celebrating mom on Mother's Day and beyond. May is the month that we shower mom with love. But for some, this time of year is a stark reminder of fractured relationships and feelings of abandonment. Today on A Balanced Life, we will be uncovering the trauma of mother wounds and sharing tips on how we can begin to heal them. Joining us for this conversation is Deborah Bell, Dr. Aaron Bishop, and licensed therapist, Dr. Sheree Watkins. Come on in, everybody. Hey, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Now, for a number
Hello.
absolutely, for a number of people, when they think of mom, they think of love, nurturing, support, and all the things that make us feel good. But for others, this is not their reality. And for them, thinking of mom elicits feelings of abandonment, neglect, or even abuse. This not so positive experience with mom can lead to the development of mother wounds. So today, let's unpack this topic and help viewers understand what mother wounds are, some of the ways that they develop, and what we can do to begin the process of healing them. Now, I want to start this conversation with Dr. Watkins because this is your first time here on A Balanced Life. So to start, tell the audience a little bit about you.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. T. I am Dr. Sheree Watkins. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I'm triply licensed as a certified rehabilitation counselor, a licensed mental health counselor, and a licensed clinical addiction specialist. This is my 13th year practicing. I'm licensed from the state of North Carolina, but currently reside in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I currently serve as the Associate Vice President over Student Health and Wellness. I still do have my private practice where I predominantly serve um, historically marginalized populations, particularly those who are my C-suite women of color. So those who are constantly working tirelessly in the C-suite who are leaders. And so it is a joy to be able to help them to be able to navigate Eurocentric ways of what it means to work in leadership and also to find balance in their life as they're leading their homes, their workplaces, and then sometimes provide complex marital and couples counseling to help them to navigate that too. So that's just a little bit about me.
Absolutely. Now, Sugar, Dr. Watkins and I are good friends from
Yes.
way back. And she and I actually work together with clients from a therapy perspective and a coaching perspective to create a
Mm,
360 around the client. So when it comes to talking about mother wounds and all the things, she and I have really worked diligently together, to help
mm.
our clients in this. And so this is why I want to start here with you to just get a working definition of mother
Mhm.
wounds. So tell us, what are mother wounds?
So I want to start off by saying that mother wounds can typically be defined by the role of a mother, but also by the role of a mother figure. So I've heard clients say that it can be defined by someone who's a foster mom, an aunt, a grandmother, anyone who is a mother figure who has been an important person in their life and livelihood. And so that is the first part. So I just want to make that clear. It doesn't have to be the defined mother in their life, but it is an emotional injury that has caused harm based off of an unmet need that typically results from harmful patterns of behavior that has happened and stems from childhood. It is emotional pain. It is trauma. It's a lack of nurturing. It is unhealed experiences from this mother figure. And it's typically rooted in their emotional neglect, criticism, control, abandonment, and most importantly, that we sometimes don't talk about, unrealistic expectations that is placed upon women and even sometimes men that we see in each and everyday lives. And so that unrealistic expectation causes these types of behaviors and values and beliefs to bloom out of control that we bring into our adulthood.
So sugar, as you can see, this is a broad topic. So now when everyone just come on in, because we're about to just like unpack this even more. Hawkins just gave us a very broad definition of when we use the term mother wounds, how they are defined. But let's talk about some of the reasons, the situations, the circumstances where we begin to develop mother wounds. Like where do they come from and how do they then present and develop in our lives? Anyone, just jump in.
So I'll start off. Uh, I grew up in my aunt's household because my mother died when I was 6 years old. So that in itself created a wound. One of the habits, I'll call it, of my aunt was to call names, to kind of almost degrade just a little bit in her admonition or trying to get you to self correct some behavioral things. But the impact that that had on me, on top of not having my real mother and then receiving uh, language applied to me that uh, caused me to have really some self issues, that wondering whether or not I was good enough. And I think that's one of the things that happens with mother wounds, that feeling of not feeling fully accepted, wondering whether or not you really measure up because of the things that have been said to you about you. So that's one way that I can identify it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Dr. T, let me add to the conversation because I think this is a courageous conversation to have during the season that we celebrate mothers. We all know that we are the fruit of our mother's womb. And when you look at fruit, is it the fruit that's a problem or the root that's a problem?
Mhm.
I think sometimes we have a root problem because generational transfer or generational trauma starts with the traumatization of a child in the womb because of what the mother's going through. And some of those children come out impacted with the emotional damage because of the emotional explosions that happen. And you can find that in what our therapists can probably call a trauma triangle. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we look at what is the root problem, it goes back to what Kendrick Lamar said. He said, I got power, poison, pain, and joy in my DNA. Listen to that juggling act that a child will have to have because the mother had to have a juggling act with all the power, the poison, the pain, but yet she had to have joy because every child is a gift from the Lord, right? But what do you do when that gift is mishandled? That is where the mother wound cuts deeper than anything else we've ever experienced in life, where that season of abandonment because the mother had to juggle several jobs, that season of abandonment because the mother had to go between loving the husband and yet loving the child when you can still do both. I'm reminded of what Frederick Douglass said. He said that it's better to build up children than repair broken men. We got a lot of children out here broken because they are broken through the juggling act that mothers have had to have. And it has cut so deep that healing is needed. And there still is a bomb in Gilead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I,
that's come on. Come on.
I was going to say, I love that Dr. Bishop put it in very, as we like to say, simple words.
Yeah.
In clinical research words, what Dr. Bishop mentioned is what we call intergenerational or historical trauma. And that triangle that he's referencing is the visual depiction of that research in clinical term. What we pass down generationally is physical trauma, physiological trauma. So when we look at that triangle visually, if you Google it, you'll see that diabetes, hypertension, you'll see obesity. When you look at the other types of trauma, as far as emotionally, you'll see increased alcoholism, you see depression, anxiety, and then when you look at the family dynamics, we see increased incarceration, prison pipeline. You will see family dispossession, the breaking up of the family household. But one thing that's interesting when you look at the researcher Sotera, who created the visual depiction of historical or intergenerational trauma, was that you couldn't forget about the one positive pieces. Dr. Bishop called it joy, the intentional joy. The clinical term that we call it in research is resiliency, the ability to bounce back. And one question that I always ask my clients is, when we're talking about this sense of mother wounds, and we're trying to ask ourselves that question about how do we forgive the mothers that birthed us, that held us in their wombs. And I asked a very difficult question, which is, how do we forgive if that was the best that they can offer us? If that was all the tools that they were given themselves from their own mothers or their mother figures? Because it's a very interesting question when I have to ask my clients, well, what if that was their very best and that was all that they had?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think we don't open up the therapist treatment right now. That what a spot on way to say it. Yes. And I tell you that there are a lot of children or either grown adults that they just they weren't raised, they just survived. You know, they survived the outburst that a mother has because she's so emotionally charged that as soon as the child says, "Mama, can I?" No, you can't. And we always have joked around just for the lighthearted moment when the child is seeing those golden arches in the sky, because McDonald's does a great job marketing it. "Mama, can I have?" And what does the mother always say, or even the father? "Do you got McDonald's money?" So, the stress of what a lot of mothers are going through just to keep the balance of the family, has become a burden on so many adults, as they just didn't experience being raised, but they had to survive.
Yeah. Okay, Sugars.
I wanted to add.
Hold on, Deborah, because that's Sugars. As you can see, we are talking heavy today. We are turning over these rocks, and we are leaving no stone unturned. But we have to take a quick break. So, Sugar, grab your pen, grab your iPad, grab a piece of paper, your phone, whatever it is that you take notes on. Because when we come back, we will uncover how to tell if you have a mother wound.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back, Sugar. Let's keep this conversation going. Now, everyone, just come on back in, come on back to the table. Now that we have kind of uncovered what mother wounds are and some of the places of where they stem from, we can begin to talk about what are some of the signs that you might have a mother wound. Okay, so let's talk about the common signs that someone with a mother wound might exhibit. And to start, I'm going to make a statement, like a fill in the blank, okay? And you guys just jump on in and fill in the blank, okay? You might have a mother wound if.
You might have a mother wound if you are experiencing depression, if you have issues around self-worth and self-esteem, because Psychology Today reports that 1 in 4 women have indicated that they are experiencing some type of mother wound. So that means it moves not just in your childhood, but into adulthood and into how you deal with relationships.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm gonna be very
You
simple in thought. I'm gonna say when you cry out of pain at the
Mhm.
image of someone being a mother.
Mhm.
And you know, the precipitation of that pain coming down your face is kind of reminding you, I'm telling my age, you know, when the weather gets funny and you start feeling a little pain in your knee because
Yes.
you know the clouds. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You start
Yeah.
feeling those weather aches. And we've had to weather a lot of storms in our life. And every storm that comes around every year is when everyone is loving on their mother and you don't have a mother to love because of
Mhm.
the strained relationship. And so when you begin to cry with pain, you have a mother wound. And this
Mhm.
is when, you know, you have to find a way to find some type of covering, a mother, where even the loss of a mother, I agree, I had a great mother, but the loss of my mother makes me always ask my friend who has a mother in my presence, can I embrace your mother for a hug? That
Mhm.
simple prescription, that simple solution can probably help you with your mother wound.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whew.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up, Dr. Bishop, because that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this conversation. Because during May, Mother's Day, we always focus on, oh, love mom, shower mom, but we don't look at the population of people that are hurting during
Mhm.
this time, that they have a mother wound. And so sometimes they may feel jealousy. So you might have
Mhm.
a mother wound if you feel jealous of
Yes.
seeing a mother interact with their child. And so that feeling of resentment might be an indicator that you might have a mother wound. Hmm.
I think what's interesting, T, that there's so many different variables that you can ask yourself. And instead of teasing those out individually, one of the core questions that you can ask yourself before you start getting to more of the specifics is, what relationship patterns did your relationship with your mother and our mother figure teach you? Because in that household with your parental figures, particularly we're talking about mothers, that's where we first learned to form relationships. They
Hmm.
taught us how to communicate, they taught us how to love, they taught us how to navigate conflict. We all learned that from our mothers and also from what we saw in our household when it came to relationships. And so when we think of that in its very core, what is it like in your current state when it comes to how you navigate all forms of relationships in your life, in your home, in your, as we like to say, our different levels of relationships? Are you an acquaintance? Are you a friend?
Hmm.
Are you the bestie? What about in your intimate relationships? Are there some patterns of you getting in unhealthy relationships or being with, just friends with benefits? Are you a people pleaser?
Hmm.
Do you have fears of being rejected? How do you show up at work? Are you always the people pleaser on the job? Or do you once again don't get along with people? Don't know nobody want to sit with you in the break room? All those different types of questions and different types of examples that I just gave all are stemming from how we begin to form and mirror, or sometimes my grandparents taught us, fake it, what we
Hmm.
thought we saw within our home. And so one good thing is, like, what does that inner voice sound like that you are either trying to imitate or emulate that we saw within our first forms of relationships within our homes?
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed out the relationship piece. I'll even extend that to say our relationship with our finances.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can be we have some broken financial patterns and maybe excessive shopping. And then our relationship with ourselves. Do we have this pressure of perfection and performance that we put these unreal expectations to be perfect on ourselves? All of those go into play here. And in keeping with this thought of relationships, I want to take it to a different spin here, because often when we think of mother wounds, we often think of daughters with mother wounds. But can sons have mother wounds too? What you think?
Absolutely. I guess I got to speak to this because I'm sitting here as the only guy that's the thorn among roses, right? But let me tell you, there's a lot of men who spend a lot of time with their mother because a lot of men are always outside the home. And so because the man isn't there, the woman who wants the husband or her man there begins to lash out on the son. And one of the first things she'll say is, looking like your daddy. And I could be stereotyping here, right? But then her anger begins to transfer over to the child, and she's no longer beating the child or disciplining the child or, having this corrective action on the child. It's now abuse. Because she's really angry at the man and not the child. And that's not everyone's case, but that is what you call a broken normal, where it has become trauma that now we consider tradition. Well, my mama did it this way. This is how she talked to me. Well, this is how I'm gonna talk to him. And so that wound that is being created by mothers is impacting a lot of men where they are slow to trust. As stated earlier, they have this barrier of really loving someone because they never knew what love was. And so this thing that is a broken normal that is happening in our lives is breaking up relationships. And that's why many men are afraid to commit, to make that woman their wife, because they struggle with the image of womanhood, all because it got disrupted and disturbed at a young age. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier. We don't have a fruit problem, we have a root problem. And that's one of the things that men are dealing with.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Bell stole everybody's thunder. And so, not to be redundant, I want to make sure that people really understand that, emotions fall on a continuum. And so he talked about emotional being unavailable when we talk about sons and mother wounds. And I think sometimes men can sometimes learn the opposite side, where they overexpress, but that's from a place of seeking validation. They're constantly, how am I doing? Am I doing things the right way? And it can sometimes be perceived as that. And so one very interesting question that I thought about when you asked, as you was asking these questions, how are we raising our sons versus our daughters? Are we raising our sons to suppress emotions? And are we raising our daughters to be sacrificial lambs? We're putting them on both sides of the continuums, but we're at the very end. I always ask my clients, well, who are you? And from a spiritual standpoint, whose are you? Because there's a loss of identity on both sides of the spectrum.
So good.
These issues are really, really powerful when you think about the residual that occurs from what a child in a household receives during childhood and how that shows up in adulthood. And on top of that, being totally unaware that you are suffering from a type of what Dr. Bishop identified as what turns into abuse. And now, as an adult, how are you managing to deal with that when you're not even really aware that that's where you are? It says to me, it speaks to me about how relationships spiral in so many different directions when people are triggered by what they've experienced in their home. the home with the mother is the first place that a child should experience love. And when that doesn't happen, all of the things that we talked about occur, and it leaves men and women who now are trying to enter relationships pretty jaded, and they don't even know why. They don't even understand why they're triggered when someone raises their voice or calls them out of their name. They don't understand why they're triggered when something at work, they're doing their best, but they're being positively criticized about how to improve, and then they feel some kind of way. It is an amazing thing that what happens in our homes flows with mothers, flows right into every other aspect of what we do as we mature and grow into adulthood. And it may be the reason why we see so many different things in relationships, all kinds of relationships that are a root cause, from that root cause, as Dr. Bishop said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Sugar. I hate to do this. I really do hate to do this. But we have to take another break. But don't go anywhere. There is much, much more to come after this.
We begin tonight with the people who are really running the country right now. Now, Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history. Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy, as well as co-president Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands with Joy Ann Reid and all folks who understand the power of Black voices in media. We must come together and never forget that information is power. Be sure to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin, or download the Black Star Network app.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've been taking notes, because our guests have been dropping gems left and right. Again, Sugar, go get your pad, pen, iPad, iPhone, whatever you need to take notes, because Sugar, we are about to go even deeper. Come on back in, everyone. All right, let's jump back into this discussion. All right, so now that we know that mother wounds can impact both sons and daughters, I'm going to push us a little deeper into this topic. I'm going to throw a hot potato, and anyone can jump in and catch it. Ready? Hot potato. What about mothers with a mother wound? Hot potato.
I think we first got to just.
That is a hot potato.
That's a hot potato. I said it was a hot potato before I threw it.
I think we first got to call it what it is, and it's so politically, it's so correct to say mother wounds, but it's mama trauma. let's and I'm not a subscriber of how people use this word, but the current culture calls it it's just ghetto, which means it's wrong. It's not right. And what we have to do is remother. Literally, that's what I said. We have to remother. As we approach Mother's Day, let's find ways to repackage it, right? Let's find ways to represent it. Let's find ways to reposition it so that people can begin to heal. Like, there are a lot of people who are going to get choked up every time they try to say, I miss my mother. Well, that's not you being weak, that's you healing. because you have to be able to digest your feelings, be able to understand how you feel in that moment. And that's just not the child. I think we're talking about, and I may be missing it, but we're talking about the mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it started somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if we can accept that there was a beginning to this painful moment that we are literally transferring from one generation to another, then we can start to heal. We can start to break the cycle. And that is what we may need to do more of. I know that, Father's Day is closely right behind Mother's Day, but we had to really start repositioning the fact that there were fathers that were really involved in their children's lives. Because you know what was happening? Because of daddy trauma, there were children who were giving their mothers Father's Day cards. And that's trauma, because you didn't want to address the pain that your daddy trauma gave you. But if you're going to really break the cycle, call it what it is. It's mama trauma that you have accepted and you have adapted and adopted in your behavior, and it has to stop somewhere. And today, if you're listening, I think this is the day it ends, but it's also the day that something new begins.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we think of, as you say, mama trauma, I think we just, for one brief second, I think we have to just realize the root cause, as Dr. Bell has said, which is we still have systemic racism and societal oppression. Those two facts alone tells us that we're going to have mama trauma for multiple generations to come until we start working on root causes within our own society. The difficult part is our mothers, our mamas, recognizing that they have their own traumas that they need to work through.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty is that right now on this current earth, as we like to say, there are more millennials that are living to any other generation. And with that being stated, they are having children, but with current Pew Research studies by the Pew Institute, they are the most spiritual and the less religious out of all generations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how they're dealing with trauma and healing looks totally different than the generations before. There is a higher expectation of healing and accountability compared to the generations before, which means that they're not necessarily going to church for that healing, but they are going to God or a higher power for that healing, which makes the healing process a little bit more difficult, because our grandma and them was like, we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We definitely not going to sit there and go to a therapist about it. And so when you have those of us who are millennials, like, I want to talk about how you whooped me and you yelled at me and it made me feel some type of way, compared to those who were before us was like, but that's what my mama them did. And so I did it too. Those were my tools of how I created order in my household. And I had to work 2 or 3 jobs. And yes, you was a latchkey kid, but look what you became. You were a doctor and you have 2 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
The process is just different, but how do we continue to break these cycles so the roots can be healthier, so that the harvest that we're creating for generations to come can look different? So we have generational wealth and we have healthier and happier and whole families, and we're not continuing to create school to prison pipelines and those types of things. And we can fight systemic oppression and those types of things. We have to work from the roots on up. But if we don't have just acknowledgement, it's going to be hard to fight and to acknowledge these different types of mother traumas. And so we know that it's out there, but it starts with accountability and acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that you brought that accountability piece in, because by no means, Sugar, this is not to beat up on mothers at all. We know that being a mother, I'm not a mother, but respecting the position of mother, and that is indeed a hard job. But moms, you have to look in the mirror and look at your own wounds and realize that those unhealed mother wounds that you have may be impacting how you show up as a mom. And so I definitely believe that we have to be accountable for our healing process, progress, or lack thereof, and any repercussions that may come from the mistakes that you made along the journey. Again, not to beat you up, but just so that we can take that accountability, as Dr. Watkins said, because the onus is on us to heal what is broken within us, so that then we can heal what may be broken around us. Okay. In thinking about that, what should mothers be aware of when it comes to their own unhealed mother wound? So if someone's watching this and they go, wait, I might be a mama with some trauma, what are some of the things that they need to be aware of?
I think that's a really good question, because I remember thinking, as I dealt with my own son in particular, I always said, I'm never going to do to him what my parent did to me. But in so many instances, I found myself repeating that cycle. And what needs to happen, and what happened for me, is I had to become very self-aware, aware of the things that I said and the way that I said them, how I delivered the message. It became very clear to me. I could hear myself began to take on those qualities that my aunt had and how I delivered messages. And so I had to take a step back. And it even called for me to apologize sometimes, in that being accountable to me and being self-aware, to apologize to my child for how I presented a message. And one of the good things that I love about my son is that he's very verbal. And so if I hurt his feelings, he's going to say, Mama, wait a minute. Every child isn't like that. I wasn't like that. So I just took it on and took it on, because back in the day, children were seen and not heard. And so I wasn't verbal, but he is. And so taking the time to be self-aware of how you're living out being a mother in your household with your children, understanding when you cross the line, when you're repeating a cycle, and then stepping back and correcting, giving yourself grace. That's going to be a big part of that process of accountability. And then learning to love yourself. Those things don't necessarily come naturally. And so learning that that's what you need to do and what that looks like for you. Giving yourself grace, taking a breather, and not beating yourself up, but being accountable still, and not just sliding it under the rug. Oh, that's just the way I am, or that's just the way I do it. Taking a different perspective on how you live out being a mother and how you mother your children differently than how you were mothered, so that it creates a more positive environment for your family.
Dr. T, can I just agitate the moment for a second?
Come on, agitate on, brother.
I mean, because something got to come out in the wash, right? And maybe I just need therapy because there was this idea that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And that same hand was used for rearing. And my mother, hey, she loved me, right? But she loved me with a stern hand. I went through that stuff where I said, man, wait a minute, does she really love me? And, and guess what? She drugged me to church. She drugged me to events. I told people I grew up drugged because my mother drugged me everywhere. And I'm saying that in a very lighthearted way. But I'm telling you that my mother was, she was tough on me. And it made me a tough person, right? Which allowed me to outlast tough times. So where are we really in society when we got to find the balance of not just being a mother in the house, but also a mother in the home. I mean, not a mother in the house, but a mother in the heart. My mother literally tried her best to keep me on the straight and narrow, although I was a hard head, right? And in order to make, my head a little softer, she made my behind a little softer because she really wanted me to be a good child. And so, my mother had to one day just find that balance because I told her that, Ma, hey, I'm 13 now. And what I did, y'all, and this is one of the things I don't encourage any child to ever do, I grabbed the belt.
Okay.
I'm 13, Ma. and she was like, hey, I know you didn't grab that belt, son. I said, yes, I did. And I was trying to let her know, teach me another way.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is a lesson to some parents that old traditional way, it was good for us, but maybe it's not good for them.
Yeah.
Try to find the balance, and maybe there's no neutrality in life where you are the parent and that's the child. But, at some point in time, that child becomes your friend. Twice, a child, once, an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is so good. And Sugar, I hope you picked up what Dr. Bishop was putting down. Because basically he's saying that those unhealed mother wounds can negatively impact the relationship that you have with your children. And I'm gonna agitate the water just a little bit before we go to break. Those unhealed mother wounds can also result in mom, you being jealous of your daughters, and being jealous towards the wives and the girlfriends of your sons. Okay, I'm gonna leave that right there. But Sugar, we gotta hurry up and jump to a break. I know we've been talking heavy today, and when we come back from this quick break, we will be talking heavy about healing when we come back after this.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, let's jump back into this conversation. Everybody just come on back in. Now, you've all heard me say, what good is information without application? Because that is the only way we will see transformation. So for the remainder of our time together, let's talk about what we can do to begin the process of healing mother wounds. Anyone just jump in with some tangible tips that viewers can start doing right now today to heal their mother wounds or mama trauma.
T, after, we've already mentioned about just acknowledging that there is a wound. That's the very first step, is to say that, something's not right. The second thing is, after acknowledgement, what we don't talk enough about in our community is giving ourselves permission to even heal. We don't acknowledge the process of, as we talked about in the home, what we saw as far as the relationship piece. What we also sometimes didn't see in our homes is permission to heal. What we did see a lot of is picking ourselves up by the bootstrap, picking ourselves up and keep pushing through. We saw ourselves, again, being resilient and going over and over again and being everything to everyone. But healing, ing, means that it is a continual, pervasive, and active and intuitive process.
Yeah.
And in order to be accountable to that, that means that you have to sometimes be still and create the plan. And so once you acknowledge it, I truly charge the audience to say a simple phrase: I give myself permission to heal, which is sometimes simple and difficult at the same time. Which is, I said that a lot, and I know me and T, we talked about this when we was together in Charlotte in the midst of COVID, was giving ourselves the permission to grieve.
Yes.
Which we don't do a lot of in the Black community, because some of us, we get 2 days, we get a weekend during the wake and the funeral. But healing is a process where we sometimes start, we make mistakes, we back up, but make the plan. It's yours. You get to start, stop, revise it. It's continual. And the most important advice that I can give as a therapist, besides it being your own, is have multiple tools inside that plan for healing. What do you want it to look like to remother yourself while you're continuing to mother? Because the reality is that you're still mothering. The process of healing doesn't stop. You don't stop mothering while you're healing. Both things can occur at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. These are what Dr. Watkins just kind of peel back the covers on, is just even in as a professional coach, as a professional therapist, just our personal conversations with each other as a reminder to, hey, give yourself permission to grieve, give yourself permission to walk through that, and so with that, I will say having an accountability partner. Dr. Watkins just let you know she's one of my accountability partners. I'm one of her accountability partners who is standing in the gap with you as you heal. And that can be someone from your personal life, that can be your coach, your therapist. And y'all know, Sugar, what is my number one phrase that I always say? Get a coach, get a therapist. We all need, yes, go to the altar, go to the throne, lay it at Jesus' feet. And then when you get up, go call your coach, go call your therapist, okay? Because that may be the accountability partner that you need as you walk through this. Excellent, excellent. What other tips would we give to our viewers who are potentially walking through healing their mother wounds?
So Dr. T, you talked about an accountability partner, but maybe some people need a community, a sisterhood that they can lean into in those times when they find themselves struggling to give themselves grace or to love themselves. Finding a sisterhood who can also hold you accountable. That may be something that we would need in this healing process. Sisters can tell you the truth and at the same time love on you and make you laugh. And sometimes that's what's needed. We need the truth, but we also need the balance of feeling accepted and loved as a means of even helping us to learn to love ourselves. I love that whole aspect of giving yourself permission. Give yourself permission to acknowledge what you did not get, and maybe even what you don't know how to give, as you're learning and healing at the same time. Dr. T, you also mentioned give it to God. That is definitely another thing that many of us, because we are people of faith, sometimes we don't open all of the doors at one time to allow God in. But as we recognize things that we need healing from, open the door and allow God in to those spaces to love on you and to help you in this healing process. So community can be very important. Of course, the relationship with God, learning how to remother things that we've already said, but being intentional about sisterhood as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
let me lean in on here because I think we're about to run out of time, Dr. T. But
Come
what
on.
I do want to tell you is some full acceptance and understanding that your mother gave you all that she had.
Yeah.
And even if it was just hurt, that's what she gave. And today, maybe this courageous conversation has made you understand that hurt people. But also, on the other end, healed people can heal people. So here's your reality check today. Take it to your community bank and accept your direct deposit from this show to help you understand that your community wealth is in your community healing. And here's my perspective I give to everyone who encounters me. There is a perspective in life of the windshield versus the rear view. The rear view is the things that are old. Old things are passed away, and your windshield is your new opportunity. What is your new opportunity? To be a better mother, to make sure that the mama trauma, the mother wounds are going to stop with you. Because guess what? I did say earlier that you are going to be twice a child, once an adult. As you get older and older, that child is going to be the one taking care of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you want to do is give those good and strong direct deposits of healing in that child's life so that child can take care of you. But first, you got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. 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 Two things that come to mind, two healing tips that come to mind. One, Sugar, be patient with yourself. Because a lot of times we'll say, okay, I need to heal, and we think it's just supposed to happen just because I said I need to heal and woo, now I'm healed. Sugar, sometimes these wounds can stem from places that are 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 70 years old, and so some of those thought patterns and behaviors that we've developed because of those wounds, they are entrenched. So being patient with yourself as you do the work, as you walk out this healing journey, as you're working with your coach and your therapist and your healing community and your accountability partners, be patient with yourself as these behaviors begin to unravel, and don't necessarily beat up on yourself like, oh, because I know better, I'm supposed to do better. Yeah, doing better may be on a spectrum. We do better day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour. So you may not get it right in the first, you watch this episode and say, woo, I got it. It may take some time, Sugar. So make sure you're allowing yourself to be patient with yourself. The next thing that comes to mind, and again, y'all have heard me say this a lot, boundaries. Sometimes when we, oh, well, my mama did this, and we want to cut people off. Our cutoff game nowadays is strong, and we just want to cut people off. And Sugar, it might not be that you need to cut that person off. It might be that you need to set some boundaries, some new boundaries. Dr. Bishop told you he set a boundary when he grabbed that belt. that was him kind of setting a boundary at 13. Now that may not have been the best way to set a boundary, but that's what he was trying to do, set a new boundary. So consider looking at your boundaries, and maybe during your healing process and in this relationship, setting some new boundaries for yourself for that relationship will help you navigate that relationship as you're walking the journey toward healing. What you guys think?
Say it perfectly.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to set the boundaries. And there's so many new tools and books out there. Nidra Tawwab, who is from Charlotte, North Carolina, she was one of the premier Black therapists within the last 2 years for us in the therapy community. We are so proud of her for writing her recent books on boundaries. We have not had a Black therapist to write a book on boundaries from our perspective in the last 20 years. And so she wrote that book, and you can find it on different markets from Amazon to Barnes and Noble. And she writes it in a language that is easy to read. And so I would definitely recommend her book when it comes to boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wish I had some resources, but I'm going to tell you an age-old adage that says a family that prays together stays together.
Absolutely.
And the Bible says, can two walk together unless they agree. Open up the lines of communication, not just in praying to God individually, but praying to God collectively. How can we be better together? And the truth is, guess what, everyone? It's going to cause those moments as stated earlier where it may trigger you over the trauma in the past, and you got to walk that thing all the way back to the future where you stand in that moment. But give yourself that time, give yourself that moment, because healing isn't sexy. It's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
It's ugly first, and it gets beautiful next. Let's work together on all of that instead of individually, but do it collectively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's that beauty for ashes that the
Yes.
Bible talks about. Absolutely. Well, Sugar, this conversation has been so good, and the gems dropped have been a balm to the souls of men. Now we have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. I'll be back after this.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
When it comes to mother wounds, we've learned that they can impact us in ways that we did not expect. From our feelings to our finances, unhealed mother wounds have the power to fracture our relationships with ourselves and with others. Mother wounds may hurt us deeply, but Sugar, never forget that they can be healed. Whether you are a daughter with a mother wound, a son with a mother wound, or a mother with a mother wound, know that there is hope. Our experts today gave us some tangible action steps that will help you begin your healing journey right now. So, Sugar, let's make May the month for mothers and for healing mother wounds. Thanks for joining us today, Sugar. See you next time.